Signature TV, news in your pocket.
Quote for the day before the conversation: there is no greater evil than killing. I don't care whether they call it war or justice. Life is precious. And this quote is from Brian Jacques. And also, Governor Peter Mbowe of Enugu State has taken decisive steps to curb ritual killings and the abuse of traditional spiritual practice with the transmission of a new executive bill to the State House of Assembly. The proposed legislation, titled Maintenance and Internal Security, Vigilance and Order, seeks to regulate the activities of native doctors, spiritualists, herbalists, and other practitioners whose unchecked operations have allegedly fueled criminality across the state. The bill explicitly outlaws ritual killings, the use of criminal charms for protection or wealth, and the operations of illegal camps and forest settlements linked to kidnapping and banditry. It proposes tough penalties, including long-term imprisonment and heavy fines for offenders. And our conversation is on bill to regulate traditional and Christian religious practices in Enugu State. Our guest in the studio joining us is Honorable Raymond Ugu, who is the House of Assembly member representing Enugu East Rural Constituency. Good evening, Honorable Raymond.
Good evening.
Thank you for joining us. Okay, so first of all, what's really led to the passing of this bill? Have we had like serious cases? I know something happened in Enugu a few weeks ago and other things that has been happening on the ground, but what happened a few weeks ago was a bigger picture to how far this thing is. Is it this particular incident that prompted this bill to be passed, or it's something that has always been in the process and we just got to the conclusion?
Well, let me first of all appreciate you for having me in your program this evening.
Thank you for joining.
Yes, in the introduction, I am also the chairman, House Committee, Youth, Sports and Security Matters in the Assembly. I represent the constituency that you have mentioned. Okay. So, your question, you know, there must always be something that prompts something to happen. The state government pays more attention in the security of life and properties of the citizen. But in as much as the state is doing enough, the idea of having a law that will see for the total protection of everybody was prompted by this atrocity that happened in Enugu, where in the 21st century we still see people having this mindset of burying their fellow human being alive. And then you go to Iweze South, where a prophet also was accused of killing up to 4 siblings from same father and mother. And this, as a government that is that pays more attention to the welfare and protection of the citizens, this law has to come up. And this is the major reason why. But the law is not only on this. The law also provides for a legal framework that will now put the what it takes to provide security to the state in the hands of everybody. You know, we passively say that the security of life and property is not just for the government or police. We passively say it. But now, the state government now thought it wise to provide a legal framework that will now bring everybody in the business of security. Now, the president generals of every community now have a critical role to play in terms of security. The sectional rulers have theirs, and every other citizens. So the law is the scope of the law is so broad. It's not just targeted only on religious and religious practice and all that. The law deals with banditry, it deals with kidnapping, it deals with people who owns properties and do not monitor it. They have penalties to pay. It deals with even hotels. That if you're running a hotel now and there are things you're expected to do by the law, and if you don't do it and anything happens in a hotel, you'll be held accountable. before now, it has not been like that. So that is what this law has come to do. So it is actually a legal framework to provide absolute security for the citizens.
Okay, so how do we balance this particular bill that has been passed with the constitutional rights to freedom of worship and religion?
Okay.
Because it's like a thin line.
Okay. You see, in the Constitution, sections 34, 5, 6, 7, 8, the fundamental human rights was provided. Remember, the first line in section 34 is right to life, right? So when you get to the section 38, where this right for religion was mentioned, it is a right too. Then there's a right to life. So if your practicing of religion or spiritual whatever is now infringing on somebody's right to life, it becomes criminal. So before now, people commit all of atrocities in the name of religion, but there is no legal framework to hold them accountable. You see some, this law as well is more of, what I say is community-driven law. Before now in Enugu, you can see people confess even of killing somebody with a lot of concussions and diabolic means. But because there is no legal framework to hold the person accountable, the person will confess and still live, going freely. So the target has always been people who kill with ammunition or whatever. But now, you see that somebody said he's a pastor, or is a native doctor, and he's killing somebody. And because maybe he uses diabolic means to do that, the law will say there's no means of holding the person accountable. Now, because of the presence of this law, when it's finally signed by the governor, you now see that the person cannot be held accountable, then cannot be prosecuted in court, because there is a legal framework to
governing it.
So that is it. So because of the presence of this law now, no one in the state can ever, through any means, that is not maybe using gun and all that to kill somebody, that will do that and go scot-free. Now, even this law, there is this thing we call it, is a local law, because at times you think about people. There's something we call achere here, where people sickness like elephantiasis. It's provided in this law that if you're found guilty of using that to harm somebody or to kill somebody, there is a penalty for you now. Before now, it wasn't there. So people use that space because the law has provided for freedom of religion. They will now use religion as a canopy or cover to commit all these atrocities.
Okay, so with this law put in place now, we have diverse religious groups, people that worship different things. So how exactly would you distinguish between people that do this for the right reason and people that do this to harm people?
Yes, the law itself in these provisions did not in any way maybe target one person. It is in its wholeness for everybody of every religion, sect, right? So what you do here, he said, in every provision of this law, he said, after the person has been found wanting, after prosecution, you must be convicted. So you must go through the process of the court processes. Then the court is now the court that will not determine, through evidence provided during the process, will not determine whether the person is guilty or not. Right?
Guilty in what sense?
If, for instance, you are accused, or that what happened in Ezago, you are accused of killing somebody, and you are brought to court, and the people who accused you came up with front-load their evidences to prove their claim. And the courts, after critically looking at it, considers it that you've committed that offense. It is not like, it's not the jungle justice of a thing that you're caught somewhere and people proclaim that we did this and they take action. No, you must go through the processes of the courts to ensure that it's your rights to fair hearing was given to you, and after that, the court, it's not the duty of the court to decide whether you're wrong or right. Okay,
so let's go to the village where we have ancestral homes, where we have family shrines. Will this be affected? I mean, not all, some people see this as a means of protection. They've had it for centuries, and it's been working well for them. Some of them say, oh, they don't use it for to harm any other person. So what would happen to things like this?
Okay, remember what the law is not for to harm or to begin to witch hunt those people. Okay. There is a provision in the law to protect them as well. That in as much as you're practicing your religion, in as much as you have deity of the olden days and all that the whole family believed in, right? And how do we ensure that you're not using it to commit those vices or evil atrocities in society? How do we do that? First of all, the law provides that. First of all, you must register with the government, right? When you get registered, in that process of registration, the Igwe, traditional ruler, or the general of that particular community will be able to give you a letter to accept that he knows that you exist in that community. Through this registration now, you'll be monitored and checked on what you're doing, because government is already aware that they exist in there. So those other ones who their own already know that they are fraud, they will never come forward to register their own. But those other ones who believe, if you know that what you're doing is real, if you know that this your deity, you're doing the right thing, if you know that your religion, whether Christian or tradition, right, then you come forward and get registered. So through that, government will begin to, through the MDA that will take charge of this law when it finally comes into force, they'll begin to checkmate the activities, whatever you're doing there. So you find out that it's not to stop you, but it's to regulate you. Okay. Regulate your processes, your actions. And how do you do this regulation? You must make sure that the person exists first through the registration. So you know his address, he knows everything about him, and the community as well knows that you are existing in the community through the leadership of the community. Okay. So through that, you'll be protected. You're not being shorted. Because once Igwe or the PG or any other person there have confirmed that you're existing, they know that you're existing. And then you provide what you're doing, and they're able to prove that this is what you're doing. So
there are investigations that will be carried out?
Surely. Once this governor signed this law, signed into law, the next thing should be to create either to sign it to, because the law provides for the governor at his own discretion to decide who will enforce the law. Which, if you want to give it to a ministry or create an agency, or they'll give it a department that will monitor it, that's now for him. So whatever committee or whatever thing whatever group or any group he chose to assign this function, then it's now left for him. So these people created now will now ensure that these people get registered, and then they checkmate their activities. So it's not that they are being stopped from doing what they're doing. You have the right to do whatever you're doing, but the government now pays attention to what you're doing, so that we know when you're doing the wrong thing, and then
okay. So using what happened in Enugu as an example, what happened to this man in question? Has it been used to set as an example for every other person to know that if you are caught doing this, or is he being let go because the bill was not passed then?
No. He's still under detention. Okay. That his own, for me, there is even an obvious evidence that was secreted everywhere. Of course. But government will not rely on those things as they were secreted online.
So it's not evidence enough?
No, it has to pass through the court. I'll tell you, government doesn't go into jungle justice. Okay. He's still in detention now, to the best of my knowledge. But government will not, because we've done this, we'll catch you. No. It has to go through the process of prosecution. So it is the court that will now, at the end of the day, decide, is he guilty or not? If he's guilty, he gets his conviction and gets his penalties. If he's not guilty, he will let go. But for the best of my knowledge, he's still in detection as we speak.
Okay, so part of the statement read that even places that are in the bushes, they use for kidnapping and the rest of it. And this is not just the angle of religious practices. It has to do with banditry, kidnapping, insecurity situations. And with what has happened in Enugu State, and still happening as well, we've had cases of herders, farmers clash and things like that. And these people live in the bushes. So what's going to be the situation of this if the case comes to this? Comes to having a herders farmers clash, people in the bush, you know, kidnapping and so many things that happens in the bush.
That's what I told you during the introduction, that this law, the scope of this law is not only targeted at the religious worshippers, right? That is, it covers everything that has to do with internal security of the state. For instance, now, it also targets at this farmer sellers crash. Before you allow a section, I think section 14 provides that before, if you own a property and located in any forest, and some people take possession of it, you cannot tell the government you don't know. You must give accountable of what is going on in any of your property. If you have a land located in any forest, before anybody takes possession of it.
So what if this land is where there is a case of insecurity in this
area? I'm saying, before the people takes possession of that place, there is an owner, right? So what happens before? Because what I tell you that at times you find out that nobody want to have responsibility of the security of the. They just say government is duty of the government. So how do now citizens play their own role? If you own a property or own a land, and maybe some people wrongly came to that place to take possession of it and start doing anything that is bad or even good, because of this principle of, you know that there is a law in existence that if you fail, if you're owner of this place and you fail to give account of what is going on there, government have the right to take over of the land, and there is even a penalty of 4 million naira and 4 years imprisonment or even both. So if you fail to give account of what is going on in your property, whether land or building, there must be. So because of that now, you won't even allow it to happen in the first instance. You won't allow those people to, because once you ask them, what are you going to use there for? And they tell you, and you're sure that what they're doing, you have to monitor them to know that they're not doing wrong. Because anything, if you're found wanting, you will lose that property. So that has been made now to ensure that we curb that the owner of the property must be aware of what is going on in his property. The same thing with hotels. There's something, a provision in the hotel, I think section 6 of the council of this law provides that if you're a hotel owner, be it hotel, motel, or whatever, so before you maybe you have a guest in the hotel, and the visitor came to visit. Now it is no longer where the reception asks you which room are you going, and he says, and then he calls, says somebody, you have a visitor. No, now as a visitor who is visiting a guest lodged in a hotel, you now have to provide your valid means of identification that must be located by the hotel.
So you drop it.
You drop it with them, and the receptionist must take record of it. So at any time the law enforcement agents will need this, they will come there. So they know how many persons that came into the hotel.
So this means of identification, are you leaving it with them, or they're
just at the point of the exit,
your details?
You will drop it with them while you see your guest. Then on the point of exit, you're leaving, you will now take possession of your identification.
So let's talk about awareness of this particular bill. It's affecting so many organizations. Are they really aware of this particular bill? Because they might be ignorant of it, you know, people that don't pay attention to the news. And so what is the government doing in order to disseminate information for the safety of every other person, so you'd not be found guilty even when you're not aware?
Okay. You see, from the sanction of this bill, you know, this is an executive bill. First of all, the very first day the bill was published, it was everywhere on the news. Then, when it finally came to the House to pass its legislative process, there was, after the first reading, there was a public hearing, where, and it was widely publicized for the public hearing, where every representative of almost every local government was present. Then all these organizations that is affected were also invited, and the entire citizens. And people turned up for the public hearing, right? And then part of the public is what I'm doing here today, to discuss the bill, so that people who are not even aware of what has happened will be aware. And I believe that, you know, it's a continuous process. So after this process, when the governor will sign it and became a law, then you see that the publicity continues from there. So I believe that won't be a problem. That's what we're doing already, and we'll continue doing it.
Okay, so with this particular, we have minority religious group. Do you really think this bill is going to create a room for stigmatization for the minority religious group?
No. I've always maintained that my stand that this bill is not targeted at anybody. It's not meant to witch hunt any group of persons, organizations. The bill is for the security of everybody, including those practicing this. Because if you're not victim today, you may become tomorrow. So it's not discriminatory in any way, in any means. And I do not see anywhere where it will not be used against any person or against any group. It's not, there's no room for that in this bill.
Okay, so how can the government also ensure the fairness and also the transparency when registering and carrying out monitoring processes of these religious groups? Okay,
number one, we said there must be registrations.
So every organization has to go back and register?
Both the existing and subsequent ones will have to register with the government. Government needs to take inventory of all these groups, right? So that it will be easier for management. As we checkmate the activity, if we don't know that, if I don't know that here exists, there's no way I will know that here is an existence at all. So I must be informed that place. So that is what they will do. You come to that place to register. And if you fail to, at the appropriate time, the law, once you have found that you do not register, that is where you become a victim of the law, right? Because the agency that will be formed to monitor you must, all the committee, they must find a way to fish you out. Remember, you existing, there's no way you won't be existing in a community. And every community have a structure of leadership. So if you're existing there and you're not registered, okay, section 5 of this law even provides that the President General of every community must give a security report at the end of every month to the state government, right? So if, for instance, somebody is running a ministry, a fake ministry, or maybe a native doctor,
miracle center,
something like such, and he failed to register with the government, and the PG, during his monthly report, will say so activity is going on here, and he's not out. Because for you to even register, the PG must give you his own letter of acknowledgement that he's aware of your existence in his community. And if you are practicing and you've not corrected such from him, he will kindly list you as part of those in doing illegal activities in his community. So through that means the agency who will see for the enforcement of this particular law will now know that there is somebody who is not registered and is practicing. And when you're found wanting like that, you will cease from doing that, and then you face the penalties that follows it up too.
Okay. So let's look at public trust. How are the people receiving this information? Do they think it's necessary, or do they think that the government is diverting their attention to something that is not so important?
You see, there's, I think, at least as an adult, I believe that there's nothing on earth that we expect everybody to serve. But what I can tell you is that majority, if Enugu, like 99% of Enugu citizens welcome this particular bill with almost joy. People who feel the empathy of their fellow human being. Do you know what it means that in the 1st century, people are being slaughtered like animals? People are being buried alive. Do you know what it means? And when they know that this law has come to tackle that, what do you think will happen? They are celebrating it. There's almost, the trust is beyond 100%, I can tell you that.
Okay.
No, I have never gotten any criticism since we started the process of this law. I can't remember, I can't get any. Okay. I told you the people turned up during the public hearing, and people who couldn't even come, people called from abroad to send their own inputs to ensure that we strengthen the law, to ensure that the law does the actual thing. Because people, you know what it means. These native doctors do a lot. They are the one empowering people to go into what we call all this okite to make money. There are people who want to tell you, even embodying criminals, doing some chant for them that they can disappear or do that. So if you are able to now tackle the root cause, because some of these criminals and kidnappers, if they know that there's no charm, you know, this charm embodied them to do those atrocities, commit those atrocities, and now they know that you have now hit where the source of those powers, that they cannot get them again. What do you think will happen? The level you will see the insecurity in our nation will drop drastically. You can't imagine that. So it's a welcome development to the people of Enugu. I can tell you that.
Okay, so how will this particular bill help to curb the situation of fake prophets and people that actually indulge in activities like this? Will this not help them, you know, have another means to operate from?
Well, we are human beings, and life itself is dynamic. And what you do is that, based on what is happening now, you've created something to tackle it, and even tackle it's even futuristic in a way. Okay. Before these people were able to find means to navigate through this, I don't even see, because the members of the house did marvelously well in ensuring that we will tie this bill, that even in the near future, people will find it difficult to navigate through it, right? And even, as I told you, it's not just only the traditional religious believers coming to, or practitioners coming to register, but the broad of the law is expanded, the scope goes beyond them. It also affects the Christian religious practices, that those guys doing miracle centers and all that. Before you do it, you must register with the MDA. It's a must. So
let's look at the people that patronize these said fake prophets and witch doctors. I mean, if they don't have people patronizing them, they won't be in business. So what happens to we, the citizens, that are actually involved in this particular act?
Okay, just like I told you, I've said something like this before in this program. If, for instance, this is your source, maybe you're into okay, maybe you're into beer production, right? And you have your distributors, and if maybe you're doing it in the north, maybe in Kano per se, and the government say, oh, we don't want this factory, we don't want to be selling, we want all the sales of alcohol in the Kano state. What do you think they will do? Who would they go? Is it the distributors or the consumers? It's the company. Because they know that once they get the company down, you won't even see it to sell, because there's no way of producing it.
There are other people selling as well.
That was it. This is Enugu now. This is Enugu.
So they should go to a different place.
If you do that, it's confined of Enugu state. What you are trying to do is to protect Enugu, that is under the decision of the governor and government of the state, right? If you go elsewhere to bring it and you come down here and you're caught, you face the law. So the law cannot go beyond the state scope of the state. It's only within the boundary of Enugu state. So if you go elsewhere to get it and you bring it here and you're caught, that's where you. But what you are doing is that those people who give them those things cannot do it in Enugu. They will even discourage those people patronizing them, right? Because if it is done, it's been done in your backyard, and it can it's just a stone throw. You can just walk in and get it. Now maybe you need to go to Lagos or elsewhere to go and get it, and then maybe before you will be able to raise the transport fare to take you there, you say, "Nah, I have no need doing this again."
Okay. So let's look at, still back to the Enugu people. I mean, since it's centered in Enugu state, some people might actually feel that this is going against the way of life of the Igbo people. I mean, the Igbo people are people that they call Undo Minana. So what do you have to say about this?
Well, every society have their culture and tradition, not just the Igbo. When Queen Elizabeth was buried, you see them also doing their own things there. So it goes across board. But that's what I said. Section 34 of the Constitution provides freedom to life. Section 38 provides for freedom of religion. If in the practice of your religion, You are now infringing on somebody's right to live. What do? There must be penalty for that. Okay. So because you are doing culture, and now you're going out of the way, that is a provision. Even the culture itself provides, or this is how you have to do this. But in your own, you created another part. You think just to your own personal satisfaction, that is now infringing on somebody's rights. So the law must come in. The government will not sit and watch you because you have freedom to do your culture, and then because through that you're now killing people, you're now hurting people, you're now causing a lot of atrocities. That's what the law is coming to tackle, not actually you doing it. You must, if you must do this, do it the right way. Don't use it to hurt another person.
All right. I think that's the most we can take on this conversation. Thank you so much for your input, Honorable Raymond Ugu.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so
welcome to here.
Okay, our conversation was on bill to regulate traditional and Christian religious practices in Enugu State. Our guest in the studio, Honorable Raymond Ugu, who is a House of Assembly member representing Enugu East Rural Constituency.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.